Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. The main topic of this video will be Ukraine, Bandera, history and some words from Putin. Before I start with the news that I have for you today, I want to read you a comment that one of you have left under my latest solo video that was 2 days ago. This was left actually in Polish language, and I am contemplating on recording a solo video just reading this comment in Polish and putting out that video in Polish language alone. I don't know if this is a poem, who wrote this, who was the author. However, I think for today's video, this is very difficult to read, but it's important to read as an introduction to the next topics. That is Ukrainian history being taught in Polish schools, so far just to the Ukrainian children. And then I have some comments from President Putin. It will all be in the same topic. I'm glad the bells are ringing because they are cleaning the energy. The comment is from B. Garcia. Ukraine massacre of Polish families. The trees were crying, the sky was crying. Today, what happened is history. Does anyone remember the massacre of innocents? The murder of the Banderites was the beginning of it. Look, Daddy, are they neighbors? Daddy didn't have time to give an answer. Bandera's gang rushed into the house. His head was cut off by an axe. His wife screamed. The children were crying, but they didn't know what was going to happen to them. They were so innocent, thirsty for life. The first one in a line, a little girl. It was of no use, and the Banderites had fun. First, the fingers, all of them, they cut it off. The child squealed, gasping for breath, as his face was cut into pieces. The terrible pain was too much for him. The poor child gave up his life, screaming loudly in the hands of the torturer with his tongue. He ended his life after a great ordeal. Now, he and his sisters are walking hand in hand, although they are radiant, but still sad. The cruel perpetrators are still waiting for their brother, although he was born recently. He cried, as always, unconsciously, even though his bones were in a great pain. Don't cry, baby. It will end soon. You will be reunited with your sister and brother. The little heart had already stopped beating when it shattered on the floor. The group died in a martyr's death, and in the end, the mother remained. She has already suffered a lot. She saw her own children and husband died. First, they raped her, put out her eyes, and then cut her stomach open. In the bloody stream, when she was lying there, she was the last one to give her life. Come, children, my dear husband, together we will go to the heavenly fields, and many more will join us and their lives with the cruel murder. This is the comment that ends with, today let us remember the people from Wołyń. When despair awakens in our hearts to live in another time, we are lucky, but do we all remember them? B. Garcia, you leave many comments under my videos. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for leaving this comment, for having courage to leave this comment, because I know there are many people who are afraid to leave the comments. I will probably read this in Polish in a short clip. And now I will give you the first news that actually I have chosen as the second news. So we're gonna reverse the order of this video. Because as September 1st marks the first official day of going back to school, we have something that I've brought to your attention a while back in one of my videos, and that is a Ukrainian component. What is that? Well, we have another act of Ukrainian Ukrainization of Poland, another act of granting unjustified privileges to immigrants. All of this is included in one package that is called Ukrainian component and is going to be served to Ukrainian children staying in Poland as part of Saturday schools until is probably included in the official Polish curriculum served in Polish schools to Ukrainian children. But this is at the expense of the Polish taxpayers, and in this Ukrainian component there is to be a knowledge selected by the Polish Ministry of Education, but as a matter of fact by the Ukrainian government. It is to be a knowledge partially from topics such as geography, the basics of Ukrainian law or civic education, but also from history. Well, from the version of history that the Ukrainian government considers to be true, because in such a Ukrainian component, the modern national identity of Ukraine, there will be information about quite inconsistent with Polish history, and that is that Poles were perpetrators in the Wołyń massacre and the Ukrainians were the victims. So teaching Ukrainian children to be anti-Polish while avoiding the exhumation of those victims, maybe now I understand, besides the demonic, satanic aspect of them not wanting to do that exhumation of the bodies, the main aspect besides the sacrificial part of it, how they sacrifice those people to worship their Moloch, however they call it, the evil, their form of God, the Lucifer. Besides that aspect, there's another aspect that is, if they do that exhumation, it will prove once and for all that those were Polish people, not the Ukrainian people. So how they can teach about 60 to 80,000, as the Ministry of Education claims, these are the numbers, 60 to 80,000 Ukrainian children will be taught during those Saturday schools. I don't know how this is gonna work. Saturday school. They will be educated in this, using this Ukrainian component and cultivating the cult of their hero, that is Stefan Bandera. Can you believe this, guys? Yes, we can. Because people don't learn the history. And if they do, they learn what they choose to learn or what is presented to them as a history. And now, let's go to Putin, who said on September 2nd, we will finish Ukrainian bandits. I have an article from a portal I never had article from before for you, but I found it today and I said, you know, everyone against Iran, let's bring some news from Iran. Well, actually, this is not from Iran, this is from Russia, but the article is from Iranian Student News Agency, ISNA, just for a change. Ukraine's incursion into Russia's Kursk region has failed to achieve its intended goal of halting the advance of Moscow forces in Donbass, Russian President Vladimir Putin said on Monday. That is yesterday. He stated that Russia has been making great strides in key areas of Donbass, advancing at a pace that has not been seen in a long time. Quoting now Putin, the Russian armed forces are taking control of territories not by 200, 300 meters at a time, but by square kilometers. That's what Putin said. The Russian president added that Kiev's provocation in Kursk region would inevitably fail and that Moscow would deal with the Ukrainian bandits who have entered Russian territory with the aim of destabilizing the situation at the border. After that, Putin suggested that Kiev might come to realize that it needs to resolve the conflict through negotiations and reiterate that Moscow has never refused to hold such talks. However, the Russian president noted that the Ukrainian leadership was likely not interested in ending the fighting, given that it would have to hold new presidential elections as soon as martial law in the country was lifted. Sorry, martial, not material. Well, for Zelensky this is material. Martial law in the country was lifted. Before I continue, who do you think will win this election in Ukraine now? Presidential election, huh? The current authorities, quoting Putin, are clearly not ready for this. They have little chance of being re-elected. That is why they are not interested in ending the fighting. That is why they tried to carry out this provocation in Kursk region and before, when they tried to carry out the same operation in Belgorod region. End of quote. Meanwhile, Russia will continue to protect its people in Donbass as well as Putin says, our common future, the future of Russia. And Putin added that Moscow cannot allow hostile structures to be created right next to us. That means on the border, right? We know what NATO is doing. Next to us that hatch aggressive plans against our country and constantly try to destabilize the Russian Federation. Russia's opponents might go for negotiations after the failure of the Ukrainian provocation in the Kursk region, Putin added. According to him, the Ukrainian provocation is doomed to fail, and after it, Russia's opponents will have a desire to really, not in words, but in deeds, to move to peaceful negotiations and settle these issues peacefully. We never given up on this, the Russian leader said during a meeting with children on the occasion of Knowledge Day. How is this all connected for today's video, huh? About children, about Banderites, about Bandera. I have always said that we want to solve all controversial issues by peaceful means, the president pointed out. He recalled that the hot phase began when our enemy threw out all agreements related to the possibility of a peaceful settlement in Donbass. They announced that they would not fulfill the so-called Minsk agreements when we agreed on how to further develop relations with Ukraine and within Ukraine, with those people who do not lose ties with Russia, Putin pointed out. No, they threw away all the agreements and began preparations for military operations which they have already repeatedly conducted on the territory of Donbass. So here is ending of this article that says early last month, which is August 8th to be exact, Kiev deployed thousands of troops in Russia's Kursk region, making its largest cross-border assault since the start of the conflict in 2022. And this gives you some numbers. 1 second, everyone. So 7,800 servicemen, Ukrainian side lost, 75 tanks and over 500 armed vehicles since the start of this operation. I want to share with you my personal opinion. Why I think, this is just my personal opinion, why I think they didn't want to end this. I think, looking from spiritual standpoint, this is absolutely human sacrifice, blood sacrifice, killing the Slavic nations, people. This is what they want. This is one aspect of it, which is the spiritual aspect, which if we look at the numbers, as many of those military experts say, there is over 1 million Ukrainians that lost their lives in the physical form, right? But there are people who are affected as leaving the country, the families are broken up and all of this, right? So it's a trauma, it's psychological trauma too, that stays within your DNA. This is one aspect that I look at. The second one, of course, is the monetary aspect, that is money, 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 money. And it's not, you know, just the military complex, it's also the people like Zelensky and others that are making huge profits on this, right? And everyone in between that still remains in power with their sticky fingers. So that's another side. And then, of course, we have from the ego standpoint to remain in this power, not just for the money, but for the control, just for that. So those are the reasons, in my opinion, why they didn't want to have those peace talks at all, because you have human trafficking, you have pedophiles in full action, you have sacrificing people for sexual pleasures, sacrificing people for organ harvesting and all of this. It's not just the money, it's actually, there's another level to it, I believe, because there are people who have a lot of money, they still want more money, but there is a moment when they know they have a lot and they are cool with it, but there is something they are missing and they are addicted to it. This is a life force they cannot generate within themselves. So they have to suck it up from those people who are actually human beings, you know? Guys, that's all I have for you today. I know it's a very tense video because when I was preparing for this is very difficult subject to talk about, and I appreciate you hitting this like today and subscribing to my channel. Thank you so much for all your comments. You have no idea how much your support means to me. If you choose to support me and my work, you can do it by donating on PayPal, buying me a coffee, or donating to my fundraiser. That is for my little house to the country where I want to move, and you know what country it is. Tomorrow, I have to check the time, I think it's 10:30 a.m. California time. I have a live stream schedule with one of my favorite guests, Andrei Martyanov, the one and only, who will give us a lot of straight to the point answers to the current events. As a true military expert he is. And with this being said, guys, check out my store with my products. If you want to give a gift to someone who is interested about what's really going on in Ukraine, the best way to do it is to order the book I collaborated on with Scott Ritter, Covering Ukraine, the Scott Ritter interviews through the eyes of Anya Kay, because that book is important, you know, and I know many of you are waiting still for the copy. I would like you to type in the comments down below if you order it, when approximately you order it, and how long you're waiting. I know you will get it, I trust you will get it. And those who already purchased it, I would very much appreciate if you leave the review, because that also helps with exposure of this book and this subject to many other people all around the world. Lots of love, everyone, and remember, we are the leading edge and we are saving humanity. I see you tomorrow during my live stream with Andrei Martyanov. Make sure to check all other platforms that I am on, just in case, especially locals. Patreon is there as well. Join my mailing list. Instagram, you can follow me there for a little different content. And I see you tomorrow. Bye, everyone.